We tend to think of unidentified objects in the sky as a pretty modern thing, right? Something that started with grainy photos and sci-fi movies. But what if I told you that reports of strange lights and weird craft go back thousands of years? Well, in this explainer, we're going to do something pretty wild. We're going to connect a famous biblical prophecy, some old Roman military logs, and, yes, declassified Pentagon footage to see if we can uncover a pattern. A startling pattern that might just stretch across all of human history.
So, okay, that brings us to the big question, the one we're really digging into here. Have these things, these unidentified flying objects, always been with us? Are the things we're seeing today really something new? Or are we just the first generation lucky enough to have high-def cameras and super advanced sensors to actually document them properly?
Look, there are a ton of ancient accounts we could look at, but for this deep dive, we're going to zero in on 3 really compelling and weirdly similar stories. First, the prophet Ezekiel's mind-bending vision of a fiery wheel. Then, the flaming shields seen by Roman soldiers. Yeah, you heard that right. And finally, we'll jump to the modern day with the now famous Tic Tac UAP that had the US Navy totally stumped. All right, so let's kick things off by traveling way, way back. We're talking ancient Middle East, more than 2,500 years ago. We're diving into what is honestly one of the most famous and frankly, one of the most bizarre visions ever recorded in the Bible, the strange encounter of the prophet Ezekiel.
So Ezekiel says, "I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal." Whoa, I mean, just listen to that language for a second. This doesn't sound like your average thunderstorm, does it? Glowing metal in the center of the fire. He's describing something powerful, something structured, something that sounds, well, almost mechanical. Okay, so let's really break this vision down. I mean, sure, the whole 4 living creatures part is pretty wild stuff, but for our investigation, the game-changing detail, the part that really stands out, is the wheels. Ezekiel describes a wheel in the middle of a wheel. And get this, it could move in any of 4 directions without turning. Just think about that. That's a description of movement that just doesn't make sense in normal mechanics. And trust me, that little detail, it's going to be absolutely crucial as we move forward. Now, you could totally say, hey, this was a religious vision. It's all symbolism. And that's fair. But here's the nagging question. Was Ezekiel just describing a weird dream? Or was he trying to describe something he actually saw, using the only words and concepts he had at his disposal? To even start to answer that, we need to leave the world of prophecy and jump into something a lot more grounded: military records. So let's fast forward a few hundred years. We're heading to the Roman Empire. And you know the Romans, super practical, not really a bunch known for their mystical visions. What they were known for was meticulous, almost obsessive record keeping. If it happened, they wrote it down. And get this, respected Roman historians, guys like Livy and Pliny the Elder, they wrote about multiple sightings of these strange things they called clippe ardentes. That literally means flaming shields. I mean, that term alone is incredible, isn't it? They didn't call them gods or angels, they called them shields. That suggests something solid, metallic, maybe even disc-shaped. And remember, these aren't lone prophets having visions. This is stuff being noted down by serious, sober historians. So a clear pattern starts to emerge here. You've got multiple accounts from different Roman sources, all describing round, fast-moving objects in the sky. And here's the kicker. The context is almost always military. That means your witnesses aren't just random people. We're talking about trained observers, battle-hardened soldiers out on campaign. These are guys who know what's supposed to be in the sky and what isn't. Okay, now hold on, because we're about to slingshot 2,000 years into the future. We're going from ancient fiery wheels and flaming shields all the way to an object witnessed by some of the most highly trained observers on the entire planet, using sensor technology that is, frankly, light years beyond anything the Romans could have imagined. We're talking, of course, about the famous Tic Tac incident from 2004. And look, this isn't some ancient scroll or a fuzzy photo from the 70s. This is declassified military data. We're talking advanced sensor readings backed up by multiple highly trained Navy fighter pilots. This is the stuff that's been discussed in actual congressional hearings. It's as real as it gets. So the most crucial part here, the thing that just breaks your brain, is the movement. According to the pilots and the radar data, this Tic Tac thing could drop from 80,000 feet to just above the ocean in less than a second. It made instant, right-angle turns with no wings, no control surfaces, no visible engine, nothing.
We're talking about maneuvers that would create G-forces so extreme, they would literally crush any aircraft we know how to build and turn any human pilot inside into jelly. Okay, so let's just take a step back for a second. We've looked at a prophet's vision from the Bible, we've looked at an ancient empire's military logs, and we've looked at a modern Navy's sensor data. I mean, you couldn't find 3 more different sources from 3 more different eras. So what happens when we lay them all out side by side? Honestly, this chart right here is the whole ballgame. This is the heart of what we're talking about. I mean, just look at the parallels stretching across 2,600 years. The shape, Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel, and the Romans' round shield, it really feels like people trying to describe some kind of weird structured craft, right? But the most stunning parallel, the one that really gets me, is the movement. Ezekiel the wheel moved without turning. The Tic Tac showed instantaneous acceleration. It is the exact same core idea, physics-defying movement, reported by a prophet, by Roman soldiers, and by elite modern fighter pilots. That's wild. And really, this is the key takeaway from all of this. Ezekiel, through his cultural lens, saw a divine chariot. The Romans saw a strange shield, maybe a bad omen for a battle. And today's pilots see a UAP, a potential threat to national security. The interpretation changes completely depending on the time and the culture. But the core description of the thing itself, its shape, and especially its impossible behavior, that has stayed remarkably, uncannily consistent. So where does that leave us? We're left with a huge question, aren't we? Is this all just a coincidence? Are we just seeing a weird story that the human imagination has been telling itself for millennia about strange things up there? Or is it possible that different people in vastly different eras, using whatever language and tech they had, have all been describing the very same thing? A persistent, unexplained mystery? Whatever the answer is, one thing seems pretty clear. We are definitely not the first people to look up at the sky and wonder, what in the world is that?